Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about the watch that saved Omega, the Seamaster Professional, Seamaster Diver 300, a line that was re energized, revitalized with Piers Brosnan's Bond with the Golden Eye, where they introduced this specific watch initially with a quartz movement, but this is reference 253180 with the ETA based self winding caliber. It is an absolute classic and overall has, I think, a more neo vintage vibe and a certain subtlety about this design, about its design, that for my taste at least makes it preferable to the current pieces. But certainly it is a watch that is quite distinct in terms of its appearance, even though you can see the family resemblance with today's Seamasters. Of course, the Seamaster line from Omega is celebrating its 75th anniversary in 2023. But nevertheless, some of these 90s pieces I think remain as iconic as ever. This particular one has an aluminum bezel that has faded beautifully, and the old school guilloche wave dial, which has at once a kind of subtlety, as I mentioned, compared to the laser engraved recent versions, but also a kind of depth, I think, that um, really speaks more strongly um, about the signification of that motif in the first place. Um, the new one looks too abstract to me, whereas this has that sort of wavy feeling when it catches the light from different angles and sometimes looks outright black, as it does in this picture from this angle. But it is actually a very beautiful deep blue dial. The old school Seamaster bracelet that no one seems to like, but I actually appreciate as a design at the very least. And this particular example actually comes as a full set box, outer packaging, warranty papers, which are also stamped at a recent service. Very reasonable price point for this 253180 Omega Seamaster Diver 300M, listed by a professional dealer out of Japan at a fixed price of $2,044 in US dollars. The second piece follows the outlines of this design, but has a very unique look. This is the one that is usually called the electric blue because of the particular shade of blue that is used in the dial. The big triangle at 12 o'clock and the broadsword hands that are generously filled with lume really harken back to the aesthetics of mil-spec Omega Seamaster pieces. And I really appreciate that. And as I mentioned, thanks to the particular shade of blue on the dial and the matching stainless steel bezel, the watch has certainly its own character, its aesthetic appearance. Some might like the bracelet on this one a little better as well, on this particular example. Once again, we are talking about a full set, box, papers, and everything else that goes with it, including a leather wallet to hold the documents. And you can see from this angle how stunning and unique that blue dial is, and how that big triangle really adds to the aesthetic without really copying any other watch, right? This is a watch that's not trying to be an homage to those Omega mil-spec divers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really do appreciate that this watch has actually a very contemporary feel. Some might say a 90s contemporary feel or early 2000s, but I think this particular shade of blue could be very much at home in today's market as well. And as you can see, the numbers are engraved and painted in on that bezel, which is another distinctive visual aspect of this watch compared to the Bond watch, compared to the Bond Seamaster. But otherwise, the dimensions remain the same, and it is a truly stunning watch. And another thing that I like about the classic Seamasters from this generation is even the helium escape valve, which to some people sticks out like a sore thumb, I think was slightly more subtle, sat closer to the case than the more recent iterations. I think it is just a better design overall. And this is certainly one of my absolute favorites. Again, a full set in a very well preserved condition, considering how this watch is almost 20 years old by now. This is the Omega Seamaster Diver 300M Electric Blue. The buy it now price is $2,979 in US dollars. It is posted on Chrono24 by a private seller out of Spain who remains open to negotiation, so feel free to send in an offer that is better aligned with your budget for this watch. Last but not least, we are going back about 25 years to another anniversary for the Omega Seamaster. This is the 50th anniversary Seamaster from Omega. And as you can see, it has a lot of elements that it shares with the electric blue that we just had examined, with the loomed broadsword hands, the big triangle. But this watch has an extra hour hand, which you can use to indicate time in a secondary time zone with the help of the 24-hour bezel, which has a bicolor aluminum insert with a black background for the night hours and a silver for the day. It has a black dial with that same guilloche wave motif, quite subtle and profound, all at one and the same time. And that notion of neo-vintage aesthetic, I think, is really driven home by the red accents, which include the spare-tipped 24-hour hand, the tip of the seconds hand, and the GMT writing on the dial. To mark the 50th anniversary, the piece has a closed case back with the hippocampus logo and the inscription for 50 years. And there is like a gilt medallion of the letter Omega, the company's logo, on the clasp of the bracelet. And once again, you are getting a nice sporty GMT watch with the specs of a diver watch with 200 meters of a depth rating. You are getting rid of the eyesore of the helium escape valve at 10 o'clock, which is nowhere to be seen, as you can observe from this picture. You are getting the GMT function, and you are getting a dial and a handset that is more reminiscent of that mil-spec aesthetic that we were just talking about, with the big triangle and the broadsword hands, and an overall generously loomed configuration. This particular example is listed by a professional dealer out of the United States. Even though they are not pictured, the set is supposed to include the original papers, if not the box. The watch looks in a very well preserved condition. Again, for a 25-year-old, this is an incredibly stunning looking piece. And the buy it now price is set at $3,299 in US dollars, with the option to send in your bids and try to reach an even better deal for yourself. I think between these three, my pick of the litter has to be the electric blue, because it is the most original. Even though every single one of these pieces has a special place in my heart. The first one being the Bond watch, of course, and the 50th anniversary Seamaster, harkening back to a certain established iconic aesthetic while complementing that with added functionality. If you have any questions about these particular listings, about the Omega Seamaster, or any watch-related questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that by messaging me directly on here. You can also find me on Instagram at young.brando, and you should absolutely feel free to send me an email via Lord Hellespont the fifth at gmail.com. That is Lord Hellespont V at gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches.